All right, welcome to another episode of the NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This episode, we're talking about the Houston Texans draft review 2023 season preview, and I am joined by Branson from Back Row Texans Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Hey, any day I can talk about football is a good day, especially like this time of year. I feel like every team has some optimism, and when you look at the Texans, I mean, it's all up from here, right?
The optimism is through the roof in Houston right now. New coaching staff, crazy offseason, crazier draft.
Absolutely. Let's kind of get into that. I just talked about offline. I was at the draft, and it was just such a crazy, kind of experience to see, Houston draft trade all the way up after drafting CJ Stroud. So, first of all, talk a little bit about just your excitement for the draft and some of the players that they picked up there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Leading up to the draft was crazy nationally. Are they going to take a quarterback? Are they not? There was so many narratives, and the only people that really knew what was going on was probably Nick and Coach Ryan's there. And, just to keep it a secret like that and then come out and CJ Stroud at number 2, I was like, oh, sweet. That's awesome. We needed a quarterback. I really did like him. And then to turn around and then all of a sudden they announce we're on the clock again. Like everybody was shocked. I think Daniel Jeremiah had posted a mock and actually mocked them doing that, which was absolutely crazy. But nailed it. And then you got your quarterback of the defense, somebody that D'Amico can build around. But to see the reaction in Houston at the draft party and stuff, it was insane. Everybody was cheering and yelling. Even some players were there and loved it. It was awesome. It was a good time for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Houston, I mean, there was so much promise over the last few years when you had J.J. Watt, when you had Deshaun Watson, and just kind of everything kind of went crashing down, as a franchise and just kind of turned around. Bill O'Brien and kind of that era, I'm sure, I would rather forget that era. But now then to have like, a franchise quarterback and then have just such a quarterback on defense, Will Anderson. I mean, it obviously has to be exciting, but talk about CJ Stroud and what you like about him, because I also like him. Actually, I liked him better than Bryce Young. But talk about kind of what you like about CJ Stroud.
I mean, obviously everybody saw the Georgia game, and that was kind of his prove it to everybody else. Hey, I can use my legs. I can really handle the pressure and stuff. For one, he had a phenomenal game against arguably the top defense, that could compete against some of these offenses in the NFL, some will say. But he's super accurate and poised, and he can, he throws his receivers open. His knock, yes, look at the last 5 receivers he's thrown to. You've got, one, Marvin Harrison Jr. is there. The guys he has there or that are there this year are insane. He had Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba. I mean, all-star cast of wide receivers. So, yes, everybody's going to say, can you prove it with this Houston crowd? Because, we'll get into that later, but those wide receivers aren't nearly that. But he was the most accurate passer in this group and probably the most, I think, NFL-ready quarterback for sure.
In size-wise, I mean, he's, definitely not a Bryce Young.
Right.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to be able to take some hits. As much as everybody wanted to link Bryce Young, and if we were number 1, would we have taken him? I don't know. But the size was a concern for sure.
Well, speaking of number 1, being a Bears fan, I have not been that excited for an end season game for so long, and one that the Bears weren't participating in. What were your thoughts, during that last game of the season for the Texans? I mean, it just had to be crazy.
Yeah, so watching that game, I mean, obviously you knew what was on the line. You lose, you're guaranteed the first overall pick. And if that happens, who knows? Do we make a trade from 12? There's so many scenarios that play out if that is the case. Do we take Bryce Young? But watching I think it was 4th and 19, and gets a first down. Like Mills played out of his mind that drive, and everybody's going to sit there and say, oh, they should have benched Cooks. They should have benched Tunsil, shouldn't have played these guys. But at the end of the day, the coach makes the roster. He wanted to do it. I'm still waiting to see the shrine outside of your stadium of Lovie Smith, one for leading you guys to a Super Bowl and 2 getting you the first overall pick. But
Absolutely.
yeah, and I was pretty sure too, like if you watch the replay of the touchdown to win it or to tie it at least, he didn't try to tip it. It went right through his hands. I mean, let's be honest. So my theory was they let him do that so that they could trade ahead of him and get the quarterback they wanted. I mean, obviously Carolina beat him to it, but that was my running theory anyways.
Yeah, it's and I don't know if there what the truth is Lovie Smith knew he wasn't going to be the head coach in 2023, correct?
I believe so, yeah. I think he could tell.
And I think that's a hard thing because, knowing Lovie Smith and how competitive he is, he was not going to go out there and lose. He was going to, all out, and that's who he is regardless.
Well, and people make the mistake of thinking the players want to go out and lose for that spot. They want to go out and win. A lot of them have incentives for playing well. They want to, it's their living. They want to make money doing that. So you can't blame the players for going out and trying hard and winning. I mean, at all.
Well, and so going back to the draft, I mean, obviously, I think it worked out with all the players they ended up getting in the draft. We'll see kind of, how it plays out in the coming years, obviously, with what they had to give up. But, when you look at, obviously, C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, solid, amazing players to really kind of build around. What about the rest of the players in the draft? What players really stick out to you?
No, for sure. By far my favorite, just steal wise, value pick in this draft to me has got to be the wide receiver Xavier Hutchinson. Like I was shocked he went that late, and the fact that he was there and we traded to get to him, that was an absolute steal to me. His hands are awesome. I mean, he's not super quick. He needs to work a little bit on route running, but I mean, overall, he's going to make contributions, if not this year, for sure down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I like him too. I'm an Iowa guy, so I've seen him, play my team, when he's with Iowa State. I mean, is he going to be like potentially kind of a number one guy, or how will him and Tank Dell kind of fit into the wide receiver room there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a very crowded room of nobody that's going to stand out necessarily and take over that number one role. There's obviously a lot of rumors going on right now about DeAndre Hopkins. But other than that, I mean, we brought in Robert Woods, which is he your de facto number one because he's the veteran. Nico Collins hasn't really come out like everybody thought he would, but year 3, an upgrade at quarterback, could this be his year? Obviously Mechie was out last year with leukemia and coming back strong this year. So a lot to be, we don't know about him. And Tank Dell, I love that draft pick. I'm glad he got to stay in Houston. He's not the biggest, but man, is he quick and can separate. I mean, just watching the Senior Bowl he was making people look dumb. So I'm excited for the group. It's real young. I just don't know if, who's going to come out at 1. It could be so many different options. And then it could be just Dalton Schultz is your number 1 target. Tight end they brought in. So
great point there. And we'll get to him in a second. So then with John Mechie, do you think he's going to be ready for week 1? Is that the target?
So yeah, he was trending that way, trending to be ready for everything. He's kind of had a little bit of a hamstring issue this spring. But supposedly he's going to that'll be all cleared up by training camp and good to go from there.
Very good. Yeah. And you talked about Dalton Schultz. I liked him with the Cowboys, now coming with the Texans. I think that's going to be a solid pick. Even before, he was added to the Texans, I was kind of looking at Tegan Quitoriano. I believe is his name.
Yep.
And I kind of liked, it seemed like he was doing well towards the end of the season. Is he going to have a role in this offense, or is it going to be kind of mainly the Dalton Schultz show at tight end?
No, he's definitely going to have a role. Obviously Schultz will be the one, but TQ is going to be in there. I mean, they're going to do a lot of 2 tight end sets. They're going to for sure have a role. And like you said, by the end of last year, he was getting in a groove, and I really did like what I saw from him and was excited for year 2 here. But yeah, couldn't pass up Schultz. And the deal we got on, $6 million for the year, that was a steal too. I was shocked by that deal.
So, with the running backs as well, I mean, I was on hand live for the Bears and Texans game and seeing Dameon Pierce up close. I mean, he's a load, and he could really do a lot out of the backfield catching passes. And, I feel like they would have won that game if they had a quarterback that was, obviously, better than Davis Mills, because they seem to be controlling that game. So talk about Dameon Pierce and his role, and then maybe where Devin Singletary and some of the other running backs fit into the offense this year.
No, absolutely. Dameon Pierce is, I mean, like you said, he's a bulldozer, and he's got that mentality of, I'm going to run through you.
Mm-hmm.
And the way this, so we're going to do the wide zone scheme, and, to where his vision is key. You don't have to have all 5 blocks hit, you just have to have at least one hit, because, he's going to go pick the different zones. Well, he has really solid vision. A lot of people don't necessarily see that. They just think of him as I'm running right at you and run over you kind of person.
Yeah.
His footwork and vision is great. I would be shocked if he doesn't hit 1,100 rushing yards.
Mm.
And then as for Singletary, I mean, I think he had 800 or 900 last year. There's a scenario here where with this increased value of offensive line, plus those 2 bruisers, I mean, they could each have 1,000 yards.
I can definitely see that. When you look at the offense, they're with a rookie quarterback, they're going to need to rely on the run, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And the new system that Slowick's going to be implementing, that old Kubiak and Shanahan kind of style, it's very running back friendly. So I'm excited.
So kind of speaking to that, I am in several fantasy football leagues, some redraft, some dynasty, and we ended up having our dynasty, obviously rookie draft. And I had a chance to pick either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. I actually went with CJ Stroud. Long term, I like what he is going to bring to the table. Obviously, I'm not really targeting him for this year. And this actually is in a super flex league, so we can have 2 quarterbacks.
Sure.
So I have him on my bench. So I like long term what he can provide fantasy wise. What about in the short term, kind of in 2023? What are some Texans that we should target? Obviously, Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, no, for sure. He'd be right up there, and even Singletary is not going to have a bad year. He's not going to be a running back 1. By any means. And then if for some reason there are injuries, obviously the one who's not injured is a must start, because they are going to pound the rock. And to that, back to CJ, he's not going to have a bad year. I don't think they're going to be conservative with him. So, if you're in one of those leagues where you're getting dinged for interceptions, I don't see him having many. I'm thinking 8 to 10 at most. I mean, that's a decent amount, but for a rookie, it's not terrible. I don't think he's going to have a high volume of touchdowns. I think those will get kind of vultured by the running backs. But, I mean, Pierce had 3 touchdowns last year, and you throw in a more competent quarterback who can push the offense down the field, that's organically just going to increase. So I'm predicting 7 or 8 touchdowns at least.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's so interesting, going with the dynasty. They were doing projections and looking at projections, and they were projecting Bryce Young to get a bunch of rushing touchdowns. Looking in college, he didn't do very much of that. CJ Stroud would almost be a little bit more apt to have that. Being a bigger frame, like if you get close to the goal line, that he would actually get some of those as well if if they want to go that way. But obviously, I mean, if you got Dameon Pierce, it's hard to go away from him.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't risk him getting hurt because you have somebody like DP that can go in and he'll bulldoze his way in. If you're on the 1 yard line, if you can't score but with him 4 times, you've got other issues. So yeah, I would do that. I think I have a projection of 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns for him. Nothing. He's not going to go run all over the place. He may have 200 rushing yards on the year for CJ, but he'll have a couple rushing touchdowns.
Well, let's go on the other side of the ball. The Texans defense, obviously they add Will Anderson. We'll see, how long it takes him to get acclimated. But what are some of the other key players? Obviously Derek Stingley Jr. is, another solid player as well. What are some players that are going to need to step up for the Texans?
Yeah, for sure. Real excited to see what Stingley does in year 2. It looks like he's bulked up quite a bit this year, which is exciting to see. Petrie, another one. I was super happy with how he performed last year. He had a lot of missed tackles, but I think Ryan's kind of fixes that up. And then his running mate in the back there, the signing of Ward, that was an awesome signing. One, you have somebody who knows Ryan's defense, and 2, Ward, he's already willing to and talked about coaching these guys and helping them learn and taking Petrie under his wing, which I'm super excited about. Our secondary, I have high hopes for them. Even Nelson on the other side, he's looking to get paid. So contract year, he's probably going to have a heck of a year. He did well last year too. And then for the defensive line, they brought in Sheldon Rankins. They got Malik Collins. So, the D tackles aren't terrible. If Grenard can stay healthy, him and Jerry Hughes kind of alternating opposite of Anderson Jr. there's going to be solid. My biggest question mark, I guess, would be linebacker. Is Perryman, the signing of Perryman and Littleton, are they going to be enough, or does Chris Harris make the jump kind of thing? So I'm really, really excited about this defense and see what Coach Ryans can get them to do.
Yeah. I mean, is he going to be, changing some of the schemes, anything like that? And what are some of your expectations for him as a coach?
Yeah, I think he's going to bring over him and Burke, kind of. So Matt Burke, their new DC,
longtime Minnesota Viking.
Yep. They're going to bring over kind of what he was running in San Francisco, which last year's assistant coach of the year. So I'm going to throw that out there for Ryans. It's a different scheme than what we had with Lovie Smith, and he's going to put like Stingley. Last year he wasn't his own guy. Stingley, it's not how he was used was not best suited for his game. He learned it and did well with it, so it'll help him in the long run. But now he's going to go back to what he's good at with Ryan. So just the new system, new scheme, and everything is going to be, I think, a lot more beneficial and for this team.
And kind of on that, when you're getting a new scheme, is that obviously one of the training camp storylines? And then what other things are you kind of looking at as the summer progresses?
Yeah. So, for sure, how everybody's learning and adapting to the new system, both offense and defense. Because again, those are completely new systems. A lot of people are talking about Will Anderson, going from his role at Alabama to a slightly different technique of a role here. I don't think it's going to be an issue. Put your hand in the ground and go. Obviously, what wide receivers come out and make the 53? I think we take 6. Maybe 7, but that I'd be shocked if we did that. So what 6 are going to be the ones to make it? Those are kind of some big names.
Yeah, you've got some past names. Steven Sims did something with Washington. Amari Rogers obviously was there. Noah Brown, with the Cowboys for a while. Yeah. So there are a lot of kind of names there. That will be interesting to see kind of who they end up going with.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk lately of Jared Wayne, undrafted rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Been doing well. It's going to be tough. I mean, if you look at the roster, you've got the ones that probably make it: Woods, Collins, Mechie, Hutchinson, and Dell, I think, make it from the draft. And then probably Brown. And that's probably your 6.
Yeah. I mean, Rodgers didn't really do much in Green Bay, and yeah. And that's not a bad 6. I mean, to help grow with CJ Stroud.
Yeah. I mean, again, none of them are your true number 1.
Right.
Which, that hurt CJ's stats this year. But, again, more conservative. He's going to have to throw the ball around, and he's not going to focus in on one person.
Right. That's a good point too. So, looking at the season, and obviously there's going to be a lot of growth needed on both sides of the ball. What are your expectations as far as win-loss and, just kind of looking at the schedule?
Well, it definitely helps to have the third easiest schedule, based on last year's numbers. I think we have the AFC North and the NFC South this year. AFC North is obviously one of your tougher divisions. AFC or the NFC South, on the other hand, is the opposite. Some exciting matchups. Obviously, Carolina, so the 1 versus the 2
at Carolina, yeah,
at Carolina. And I'm in that 7-10, 8-9 range.
Really? Okay.
I mean, if you look at that schedule. We have a bye week in week 7. I very easily could see us going 3-3, 2-4 at worst. In those first 6 games, probably losing to Baltimore right away. But Indy, Atlanta, we've owned Jacksonville recently. I mean, we've beaten them, 10 out of the last 11 times.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy stat. Yeah.
I mean, they kicked our butts pretty handedly the end of last year, so we'll see. And I wouldn't be shocked if we got swept by them. But, for the sake of kind of judging it out, I pretty much go 500 in division, so 3-3 in division. And then just to need to win 4 more, the Cardinals are tanking.
Yep.
The Bucks look terrible right now, and I have no faith in any quarterbacks there.
I think they're tanking also. Yeah.
Yep. I have zero faith in Atlanta's quarterback. They're going to have to rely heavily on Bijan, which our run defense was terrible last year. So unless we fix that, that could be a win for them. I'm obviously excited for the Browns game, as is everybody else, because obviously with the trade for Will Anderson, we traded away our pick and kept theirs. That's Nick Caserio and Ryan's betting on us. We feel we're going to do better than the Browns, which would be awesome. But, if we get that 7-10 range, then it's not a top 5 pick. And to me, that's enough to make that trade worth it.
Well, and even the just perception team wise, I mean, you want to make obviously the Texans want to make big splashes to say, okay, hey, we're heading in the right direction. We are turning the page. And, I've heard a lot from, Texans fans and podcasters about, just how they unhappy with kind of the ownership and everything as well. Right.
Yep.
And so you kind of make these splashes. You kind of have to do that. We never know exactly how it's going to pan out. But, if they were to, win like 2-3 games, I mean, would that just, kind of negate all these things, or would you be able to kind of take some of the positives from maybe CJ Stroud and just kind of look at building for next year and the year after that?
So if they come out of the gate and end up only winning 2 or 3 games, I would say it's quite a fail. It's a big fail. And most of the fan base would as well, I believe. I mean, the hype right now is absolutely insane. And it always is this time of year, but it is extra crazy. We got D'Amico Ryans as our new coach. He's a Texan from the beginning, and just all of that. A lot of people look too. Last year, we were in one score. We lost, or we were in 10 games that were only a difference of one score.
Mm-hmm.
As bad as everybody said we were in a lot of games. I mean, Kansas City and Dallas, they never should have even come close to the end, and we were right there in it to the very end. So just that alone, and the players are getting behind what Ryans is pitching, and I think they're going to play hard for him, and I really do. If they came out and only won 2 or 3 games, I think it is a failure for that season. I don't need them to go win 10, but 6 to 7, they're making progress. Into is it injuries? That obviously plays a role. If CJ goes out and gets hurt, and the defense, some of them get hurt, and then you got to look at it that way. It's still going to feel kind of like a loss for a lot of people, even if injuries are the reason. But 2 or 3 wins to me is, it's a failure of a season.
Yeah, and obviously there are some tough games on here, but there are some winnable games as you look at it, and we'll see, how the offense shakes out and everything like that. But when you look at, the division, what would you say the biggest rival is for the Texans within the division?
Biggest rival. Well, Jacksonville has been kind of the bottom of the barrel for so long. And even when they were doing well, Houston, like I said, Houston had won 9 in a row before losing. So to me, they were never kind of it. To me, it's always been, personally, it's been the Colts for me, even though we haven't historically done amazing against them. I just very much dislike them the most. A lot of people will say Tennessee because obviously the Oilers came from Houston, moved there, in the middle of the night, and took all the football history away from Houston. And there's a lot of bitter people about that. So we'll see how this new uniform concept for 2024 season comes out, and see if they add that blue in from the old Oilers or not.
Oh, I didn't hear about this. Talk a little bit about that. So they're targeting 2024 for new uniforms and logo as well, or?
I don't know if the logo is changing much, but for sure the color scheme is changing a little bit, and whole new uniforms. They've sent out some polls for the fans, and the ownership's listening to some of that, and they're gonna send out a new look for 2024, which you get it year 2 of CJ Stroud and year 2 for this coaching staff and a new look. I wouldn't be shocked to turn some heads.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on. Where can everyone find you again?
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter, Back Row Texans. That's the easiest place to find me. Here in the next month or so, I'm setting up a YouTube channel and going to start producing out on there, getting some videos out. So keep a lookout.
All good stuff. Looking forward to seeing that. And, appreciate you giving us your insights. Once again, this has been NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on the Houston Texans. Thanks again, Branson from Back Row Texans.
Thank you. Appreciate it.